All right, Alexander, let's talk about the first round in the Romanian elections, the do-over, the do-over elections because of the Russian meddling in TikTok, which was completely debunked by Romanian media. They debunked that entire thing, but the European Union still runs with, and the mainstream media and the collective West still runs with this fake narrative of Russia meddling in TikTok, and leading to Georgescu being barred from running into these do-over elections. And the winner of the first round, with a little over 40%, was George Simion, who campaigned with Georgescu. Georgescu was with him even when he went to vote.
Yes,
Georgescu was with him, and he promised that Georgescu would actually get a prominent seat if he were to be elected as the leader of Romania. So the European Union and NATO, they're not going to be happy with this first round result. We're going to have to wait and see what happens in the second round, and if it is indeed Simion who becomes the leader of Romania, what happens next? What are your thoughts on what's going on in Romania?
Let's actually just put aside all the important things about, will there be a second round again and all of that, because at the moment we can't be sure. But based on the results of the first round, logically, Simion is going to be the next president of Romania.
Logically.
I mean, it is impossible to see how the result could be otherwise now. I mean, it would require electoral manipulation on an absolutely Homeric scale and a very visible scale as well to prevent him winning the second round if the second round was to be held. I mean, he's far ahead of all of the other candidates. I believe the one candidate, a Mr. Ponta, who is apparently centre-left, supposedly, but nonetheless has come out as a friend of Donald Trump's and all of that. Most of his supporters will probably go to Simion. Simion should win. I mean, it's impossible to see how he cannot. Will they let it happen? Because that's the big question there. I mean, we've had the elections which took place last year. As we know, Georgescu came unexpectedly first. All of the opinion polls suggested that he would win by a landslide in the second round. He wasn't allowed to stand. As you rightly say, the whole story about Russian interference has been completely debunked and discredited. It's not really even argued anymore. I mean, there's no real attempt to pretend that it really was a Russian, thing that managed to propel him to be number one in the first round. By the way, even if there was a TikTok campaign, and even if Moscow was behind it, I'm not sure why that in itself would discredit the result of the first round or prevent the holding of the second round. But anyway, let's not dwell on that. The point is, it didn't happen. So nonetheless, you can't let Georgescu stand. You're going to have investigations. You've got to bring charges against him. You've got to arrest him in the most public way. You put him through the courts. The Electoral Commission openly defies apparently a court decision which says that he should be allowed to stand, but we don't worry about that. I can't quite believe that they're going to do that all over again. You
never know.
You never know with these people, but it still seems very difficult to believe that they will do it. I mean, if they really are going to do it, then, as I said, Romania is lost, and I would have thought that we would be looking at not just a political crisis in Romania, but real drift towards Romania becoming some kind of semi-dictatorship, because arguably it already is one. But I mean, it would be taking that whole big step further, not just a semi-dictatorship, but perhaps a kind of controlled state in which we don't really have elections anymore because people are appointed to high office and that kind of thing. But, maybe they will do that. I mean, I'm not saying. But more likely than my guess is they will go ahead and allow this second round to happen, and Simion will indeed be elected, and he will become president. Then I think the thing really begins to become very interesting, because Simion, as I understand it, though he's positioning himself as being on the right, as being a friend of Georgescu, as being allied to Georgescu, as the person who champions Georgescu's cause, has apparently a much longer backstory within Romanian politics. So will he really follow through as president of Romania and carry through Georgescu's program? And that it seems to me is the big question. So he might appoint Georgescu to a leading position. There's even suggestions that he might appoint Georgescu prime minister. But will that really happen? And if it does happen, well, one can already see what will happen. All of the forces that we see unleashed in Hungary, in Slovakia, in Yugoslavia, in Serbia, in all sorts of other places will also be unleashed as well. There'll be attempts to push Simion back towards loyalty to the EU centre. There'll be attempts to break or fracture his alliance with Georgescu. And I have to say, looking at Simion, he doesn't seem to me to be the kind of person who is ultimately going to go into the last trench with Georgescu, if it really looks as if the pressure is very strong. But anyway, that's my guess about where this process is going. I think the EU centre is not going to be pleased by this result. I think the NATO bureaucracy are not going to be pleased with this result. But I think nonetheless, they still got cards to play, and I think they will play them. And I think, as I said, they've got probably contacts with Simion already. Put all of that aside. If you're talking about the election showing us what the Romanian people themselves believe, what direction they want their country to follow, we can see what it is. A conservative, Christian, Orthodox, patriotic, sovereigntist, anti-war position. That is the one that the Romanian people, or at least a plurality of them, want to see Romania follow. And that is completely the opposite of what the EU centre and the globalists who run it want.
Yeah, completely the opposite. They're going to do everything in their power to derail Simion. Yeah. If he does win, which, as you said, I can't imagine if they actually go through with it, that he's not going to win. Yeah. But I mean, you know, the EU is crazy enough. Yeah. Oh, yeah. The globalists are crazy enough that they just might try to cancel the second round. You never know. Yeah. I mean, I don't put it past them. They're that crazy, and they're that much in a panic because Romania is so important for them. It's extremely important for NATO. Yeah. It's extremely important for Project Ukraine and what they want to do with regards to Project Ukraine and Russia in the next 3 to 5 years. They're going to do everything in their power to either derail Simion, to try and cancel the second round. I imagine they're talking about it. If they can't do that, they're going to try to derail Simion. And my guess is, as you said, I bet you if they can't accomplish cancellation of the second round, if they can't accomplish some sort of scandal to get to Simion or to get to Georgescu, to get to both of them, let's say Georgescu's in his administration, if they can't, bring them down via scandal, which they love to do these things, then they're going to try the Hungary model, which would be to try and remove Simion with some propped up puppet politician. Or they're going to try, Alexander, to maybe do the Maloney model. What do you think about that? Oh, absolutely. Where you have a Maloney type, but you have tools. As Ursula said, we have tools when she threatened Italy and Maloney, and they brought Maloney on side, at least with regards to NATO.
Yeah.
With regards to NATO, they got Maloney on side. Maybe with the EU, she rebels a little here and there, but they made her loyal to the globalist cause with a little bit of rebellion, which they seem to accept.
And I have to say, I think that is the sort of thing that Simion himself is likely to do. As I said, he doesn't seem to me to be, he seems to me, let me put it like this, more Maloney than an Orban. Or more, so I think that he personally, his background suggests to me that he's more likely to become a Maloney than he is to stick with Georgescu and become a kind of Romanian Orban. So that's probably, I think, the direction that this is going. I can't be absolutely sure. And we do now see, as I said, what the Romanian people themselves think. By the way, just to mention, since we've brought up Orban, which is, of course, relations between Romania and Hungary are always have issues between them. These are not two structurally friendly countries. So regardless of how things evolve, it may not be easy to create a partnership between Romania and Hungary. If that were to happen, it would be an astonishing thing and a wonderful thing. But, there's still a lot of obstacles in the way of that.
Okay, final question. What happens if Simion wins and he does end up being a type of Orban, a Fico?
Yeah, Fico.
He ends up being a Fico type, where he does push back significantly against the globalists and the EU center and NATO, significantly pushes back and says no to war, no to Romania's involvement in Project Ukraine. We're going to be patriotic. We're going to be a sovereign nation. All of these things that the EU absolutely despises. What if he does say, okay, I'm going to implement this policy. I'm going to take Georgescu's platform that he was running on, and I'm going to implement it, because at the end of the day, that is what the Romanian people want. That's what they want. They wanted Georgescu and his platform.
Yeah.
And they got robbed of it.
Yeah.
And so Simion came and in Georgescu's place, and he says, okay, I'll run.
Well, they will then do exactly what they've done in Poland, in Hungary, and in Slovakia, a massive program of destabilization. We'll be seeing the protests. We'll be reading the articles in The Guardian and Der Spiegel and Le Monde from all the Romanian liberal protest leaders talking about how they're fighting against the dark spread of, whatever it is in Romania itself, the forces of darkness that they're going to be resisting. We're going to have all of that. We're going to have open interference by the EU centre in Romanian politics. Of course, there is already interference by the EU centre in Romanian politics, but even more so, we're going to see blocking of funds to Romania, which is, of course, Romania is still a relatively poor country. It's economically advanced quite a lot over the last decades, but it's still a relatively poor country by European standards. So cutting off EU structural funds.
But they have the advantage of not being in the euro.
Exactly. As Hungary has, the Slovakia doesn't, by the way.
So that plays to their advantage.
Absolutely.
The ECB can't apply pressure in the way that they can apply pressure if you are on the euro.
Correct. So they do have, and they have some natural resources, and they're quite a big country, and and it's an educated and skilled population. I mean, they could if they held together, they could see it through, but the pressures on them will be enormous. I think a lot of people, by the way, I should say this, Romanians are deeply patriotic people, even by the standards of Central and Eastern Europe. They're very assertive and about their patriotism and deeply proud of their country. So they will be a difficult people to push around if they do get a government of their choice. Just saying.
All right. we're going to wait for the second round.
Absolutely.
That's what we have to do then.
See whether it happens.
See whether it happens. Wait for the second round. Yeah. Okay. The Duran.logos.com. We are on Rumble, Odyssey, BitChute, Telegram, Rockfit, and X. Go to the Duran shop, pick up some merch like what we are wearing in this video update. The link is in the description box down below. Take care.